So if you've been following my channel for any length of time, you know how much I love my small wood stoves. So when my friend Bruno at the company PicoGrill reached out and offered to send me a prototype of a stove he was working on, you know I jumped on it. That stove? The PicoGrill 618. If you're interested in hearing more, keep watching. So when Bruno reached out to me and offered to send me the PicoGrill 618, he gave me some background into his thinking and why he was looking at this design, and basically was trying to answer a question. Could he create a larger version of another very popular stove in the PicoGrill lineup, and that is the 239. So that's what we're going to be answering today. Is the 618 a good upgrade, or at least in size, to the 239? All right, let's get started. All right, so I went ahead and folded the 618 back up and put it in the envelope that Bruno sent with me. Now, some eagle-eyed person is going to notice this, so I'll point it out myself, and that is this envelope says $4.98, and that's because Bruno has not yet, at the time of making this video, have the envelopes ready to go with the 618. I suspect they're going to be a tiny bit larger. You'll see why in a moment. So what do you get when you get the stove? In addition to the envelope, of course, is the stove inside. And this is why I said I think it may be just a tiny bit bigger. This could be, a centimeter longer, I think, just to make it a little easier to get everything in and out. You're going to get instructions. They will be slightly upgraded from the ones I have based on some of the feedback from myself and others, I'm sure. Put that to the side. You're going to get a grill. The grill is going to serve for everything, for pot support, for cooking over, anything that you need to do with the stove. There won't be anything else included. There are options, I believe, on the website. Okay, here's the stove in its collapsed state. Look how small that is. Now, I'm going to give you the dimensions. Well, first off, I'll put them all in the video description, as you would expect me to do. But I'm going to wait until I get the fire lit, because it's going to take a bit of time for the fire to come up to a point where I can cook over it. And that'll be a good opportunity for me to talk about the dimensions, the weight and the size, the height, and that type of thing. But here's how easy it is to set up. Done. That's it. That's all there is to setting up this stove. Now, I know you want to see a little bit more, so let me get up a little closer to the camera. I'll collapse it back up again, and I'll start in slow motion. So this is the bottom of the stove, and what you're seeing is that the sides are attached to the back and front plate, and they open up in that X fashion, and running down the middle is this, I don't want to call it a girder, it's not like it's a big heavy piece of steel, but it is a support beam of a type. Down inside the stove, now we're looking in from the top, you'll notice that there are two sets of plates that will fall into place. First off is the ash pan. The ash pan will drop to the bottom, and then the fire grate will drop on top of that. And they will hold each other out, and that creates the structure for the stove. Now, I just want to go over this a little bit more detail. When I first received this, I said, I can't imagine that there's enough airflow inside of the stove to support a good hot fire. Of course, I was wrong, but it took me a little bit of time to actually recognize where it was. So there are holes in the fire grill, or the fire grate, as you would expect, but there are no holes between the ash pan and the fire grate. So where's the air coming from to feed the fire? Duh, huge hole on each end. Now, that's not the only spot, but that is primary spot for air to flow into the fire and act as a feed port, as you'll see when I get going. But it took me a while to notice on the other side, there is actually enough of a gap between those bottom plates for air to feed up inside here, here, and here, to support a good hot fire. Now, when I say a good hot fire, as you'll see, it produces an excellent cooking fire. This is not a raging inferno stove. This, to me, is a cooking stove. Now, having said that, when you look at it, it's large in, well, every dimension pretty much. So my first thought was, it's going to make a great fire pit that I can cook over. And it does. It is a fire pit. You get a nice fire going in it. You can sit back and enjoy the ambiance of a good fire. But it's more than that. It is, because of the rate at which the wood is consumed or ignited and burnt, you get excellent cooking coals for grilling over and cooking over. It's actually quite ingenious what Bruno was able to do to put this stove together. Not only in terms of its pyro technique, or whatever you might want to call it, the science of having a good fire, but also just in the cleverness of how this assembles and goes away. I'll show it now because I'm not sure I'll show it at the end. Once the fire is all said and done, all I have to do, and the stove is cold, and yes, it doesn't take very long to cool off, is turn it upside down and that's it. That's all I have to do to put it away. And you'll notice the dirty parts of the stove are all folded inside. Yes, my hands are dirty. That's because I'm reaching in and showing you the pieces inside the stove. But that's all there is to it, to assemble the stove for a fire. A couple more features I'll show you now, and then we'll get the fire lit so I can make my lunch. It occurred to me that, yes, these are feed holes, so I could get long sticks to go right through, meaning less processing. Eventually they'll burn through, and then you have to push the ends in. So that is one advantage. Another advantage is turn this into the wind, and the wind right now is coming in this direction. So if I really want to bring the fire up in temperature by adding extra oxygen, then of course the wind can flow through. If I want to slow it down, turn it and face it in that direction. It's just that simple. It does provide some options. Something else I noticed, I need a couple of short sticks to demonstrate this, is if at any time you need to move the stove, change direction of the stove orientation because, one, it's either on a bad surface, or two, because you want to get more air flowing in the ends, you can take sticks, put them in, and turn the stove. And I've done that a few times, not just experimentally, but because I needed to get better airflow. And so that's another nice feature of the stove itself. Those are the features that I want to tell you about. The rest really need me to show you them. So what I'll do is I'm going to push the camera back a little bit. We're going to get a fire going in it. It does take time for a good, warm, hot fire to build up in this. And in that time, I'll be able to give you a few of the specifications, and then I'll get my lunch on. And I'm excited to show you how well this works for cooking. So let's get started. All right, the last thing I want to do before I get the 618 lit up is I just wanted to give you some size comparisons between the 239 stove I've reviewed before. I'm not sure I mentioned this, but I will put a link, of course, to the older 239, which is still available and is still a very viable stove because it's smaller, it's more compact. Maybe that's all you want, all you need for your needs. But if you're looking for something that has a lot of the same characteristics in terms of ease of setup and ease of getting the fire going, that's where the 618 comes in. So I'll just show you some side-by-sides on end. And what I'm going to say is it's about twice the size. Maybe the internal volume is even a little bit more. I will say, however, that the 239 is deeper into the box itself. Planes flying over if you hear that noise. Now, the other thing is, of course, the 639 does not have an ash pan. You can purchase one, or they'll send you one separately that you can place this on top of. But for the sake of ultralight, it sounds like a search and rescue plane. It does not come one. And I will be putting the specifications for both stoves. Actually, more appropriately, I'll just put the link to the review on this one. Then you can go and check the specifications for the 239 there. So we'll just put that out of the picture altogether. And we're going to get the fire going inside of the 618. Now, I have preloaded a whole bunch of little pine break-offs here and a little bit of birch bark. And despite my hurt, dirty hands, I am going to, now I laid a nice piece of fat wood down somewhere. All right, found my fat wood. I have a little bit of birch. Now all I'm doing here is I'm just playing more than anything else. I really probably don't need to use this fat wood with the birch right here. Birch bark, sorry. But I'm going to do this anyway, just for the practice. If it's a knife that I am testing that'll come to review before too long. That's the Doisen. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Made in Poland. Handmade, high value, quite a scraper. Look at that, huh? Again, that'll be a whole separate review all by itself. And Versurium rod. There we go. Put the knife away. Throw the birch bark on and let it up. Dump it inside, a little bit on top, and all the little, you know what, I'm starting to feel these with bare hands. I had gloves on when I broke them off, feeling a little bit damp. Well, it'll either go or it won't. If it doesn't, I have fire starters, but hopefully this will all go without the need of a fire starter. And I'm going to work my way up through a couple of different sizes. Let me just, before I can't move it, bring it back into focus here. I'll work my way up through a couple of different sizes of sticks until I get to my oak splits from a nice dead oak here. And all right, just give me a minute or two to make sure this is going to stay lit, and we'll talk about the dimensions as the fire really catches on. All right, just in time to do this section, the wind picks up, so that's going to help me out a whole lot here. I'll give you a few specifications as the fire builds up, and once the coals are established, then I'll be able to cook my lunch. So, the weight. Obviously, one of the first things you want to know. First off, this is made of stainless steel. No, it's not your average 3 or 4 stainless steel. This is a spring steel of some type. Bruno does not claim what it is, but I'm sure it's proprietary, so he doesn't necessarily give that out. But it is made from stainless steel. Even so, it comes in at, and this is the full package in the envelope, I weighed it myself, 1 pound, 10 ounces, 740 grams. So very reasonable for a stove that is more than twice the size of the firebox. You know what? This could be 3 times the internal volume of a firebox stove is, so just to give you some comparison size. Now, packed dimensions are 12.25 in length. The height is 7 inches, and it's only about 0.7 of an inch thick half an inch of thick when it is all folded down and inside of the envelope. Very, very small. Now, across here, open, it says 8.26 inches. No, that's, maybe. I think it's closer to 9. I suppose it depends on how far you press it open when you get it opened up. So that's the best of the dimensions that I'll give you. Again, it will be in the video description. A couple of things I want to mention now, just as the fire is establishing, is the value of that fire grate can't be understated. Unlike the 239, which does not the fire grate, the ash pan. I have this right now on frozen earth with a little bit of snow on top. I feel absolutely safe. Well, I feel safe this time of year for any type of a wood stove or open fire. But as the wind or spring comes and the wood start to dry up again and fire risk starts to be increased, you want to know that you're not transferring too much heat through to the ground. I may even take further steps, like a little fireproof fiberglass blanket that I offer, or pad, not a blanket, pad that I put underneath stoves. But as it is, it transfers very little heat down to the ground. The airflow, again, is pulling all the heat upwards away from that. I am going to start putting in a few of my oak splits. Everything is cold. Now this is dry, so it won't be too hard to get lit up. But you can see I'm building up quite a good fire going here. That's my intent, because it does take a little while. You want to get some good hot coals, especially if you're going to be grilling venison like I am. All right, so there's not much more to say about the stove right now. I'll cut away for a few minutes. I'll let this fire die back into some nice hot coals. We'll start cooking, because I have a few comments about cooking on this stove that I think you'll appreciate. All right, it's still going to be a few minutes before my wood dies back till I have some nice hot cooking coals, but I just wanted to give you an idea that you could use this as a fire pit. Staying warm at close proximity, you'd stay quite warm from it, but even just as a fire pit for the ambiance, and it's still working really well. Look at that. That is just a gorgeous hot fire going there. All right, I still have a bit of active flame here that I don't necessarily want while I'm grilling, but by the time I'm ready, that should knock back, and if I keep things moving, it should work well. So as I mentioned, this is everything. This is your grill, your pot stand, whatever you want. Now there are little tiny, notches or something on top, little points on top of the sides that do kind of help it lock in. Not a lot, okay, but it doesn't seem to need much. It doesn't move around much, and I feel comfortable using it as is. It doesn't need to lock in any better than that. Full coverage from end to end. Oh, I'm going to show you this now. I have another video, well, no, not a video, but I have a clip from some earlier testing I did where I cooked some chili on this stove and had a pot or a kettle on all at the same time. So this is a fry pan I'm going to be cooking some eggs in. And this is a kettle that I'll be putting on for coffee. Look at that. You can get both things on at the same time. That's no small thing. Now, right now, I'm not going to be doing this, but it's nice that you can cook with 2 items on, or at least have your kettle off to one corner, and still have room for a pot or a pan. This is an 8-inch fry pan skillet, and you can see how much room that is, meaning that you can get something much larger on top of this. Now, I have a small cast iron Dutch oven that I put on top of this, but I'll be honest, I have not cooked over the stove with that cast iron Dutch oven, so I won't verify for sure that this will support the weight. It supports the weight without a fire, and without any contents, and it appears to be stable. It's just, you know, I don't bring cast iron out into the woods to build fires and cook in, so that's what I'll have to say about that. I may do that test yet, but I don't think it'll be a part of this video. All right, I mentioned venison, right? I have a couple pieces of venison here that I'm going to put on. I seasoned them this morning before I brought them out. Let's see if I can get them directly over coals. So this is part one of my lunch. Seasoned them with salt, garlic, and Montreal steak spice. I don't know if I even need that much on it. Venison's pretty good all by itself, but it's nice to add. I can smell the garlic. That's going to add nice flavor to it. And these have appeared in another video. These are actually made by PicoGrill. What a nice set of tongs. Ultralight stainless steel tongs do a great job. Why wouldn't I bring them out to use with this stove? Okay. I have flame on the outside here, a little bit on this outside, but right down the center it's just coals, no active flame. Perfect. Perfect. Lots of heat and very little chance of me actually burning and charring them. Oh yeah, they're starting to color up. Getting some char marks already. Yeah, this won't take long at all. These are kind of nice lean pieces of meat. They're almost like fast fries. They won't take very long. I'll have to plate them before and go on to doing the eggs after that, but these won't take very long at all. Now, as these are cooking, I want to mention the next thing, which is heat distribution. You can customize which part of the stove you want the heat to be in. I've done that now by having heat on the outsides with just placing 2 pieces of wood, one on each outside. You could do the same by running it down the center, or if you have small pieces, you could concentrate all your heat to one end of the stove. As long as the wind is also blowing that way, then you can have less heat at this end of the stove. You know, it does take a little bit of finagling, moving things around, but it's nice that you have that ability to kind of customize your heat source. It's not just a raging fire, all or nothing kind of a deal. And the snow has started, as you've probably noticed. Just adds to the ambiance. I'm loving it. Oh yeah, these are cooking up pretty quickly. All right, what I'll do is I'll just cut away for a few moments until these are done. I'll plate them up and we'll start cooking some eggs. All right, they didn't take long. Look at that, eh? That beautiful. Maybe another 30 seconds here. Looking pretty good. Maybe what I'll do is while they are just finishing off, I can start the preheat on my fry pan. Now you're probably thinking, Mark, these are going to get cold on you while you're cooking your eggs. Yeah, they are. I can do one of two things. I have a plate, an aluminum plate that I'm going to put them in the meantime. Probably what I'll do is I'll just throw them either back on the grill or back in the fry pan just for a minute or two to make sure they're nice and warm so I can have them with my eggs. All right, a bit of lard in the fry pan. Yes, I'm cooking eggs in a titanium fry pan. And people are saying, you can't do that. Well, you can. You just have to be careful. So I'm mixing a little. Is this going to come out? Oh, a bit much. Olive oil and my lard together. Lard's more of a high heat. Olive oil not so much. But when you mix them together, and don't get pine needles in there like I have, then this should work out a little bit better. All right, I think those deer pieces are ready. Put them on my plate. And this is when you know whether or not you did everything level, which doesn't look like I did. 2 very cold eggs. How are these going to react to the fry pan? I think I went too far in on that one. Yep, busted the yolk. Will that make it taste any different? A little bit more gentle. That's better. And spice kit. Don't want to wait too long. So yeah, what is the trick for cooking over a flame or over a fire with titanium? Just try to keep the heat kind of low. That's all you really need to do. Keep the heat, watch them, lift them if you need to. Garlic, Cajun spice, and that'll be my eggs. Now I have a spatula here. Oh, nothing sticking yet. Oh yeah, and the oil. You got to have some oil. Something. And my fire is burning down. I think I'll put one piece in through the end. Should be enough residual heat here to ignite that, although it might take a minute. Yep, things are cooking just nicely. I know, nothing like watching eggs fry over a fire, right? It is for me. I'm just not sure how enjoyable it is for you to watch me cook when you're not here with me. I think I need just a little quick heat. What am I going to put in here for quick heat? Just to help the piece I put in get lit. You do have to watch your fire in this case, because there we go, it lit. I knew there was enough residual heat in there to light. I just don't want to create too much heat all at the same time. All right, I'll cut away, finish these eggs off. I think what I'll do is put my kettle on right after and finish my lunch off altogether. And then we'll have a few closing thoughts for the PicoGrill 618. Can you cook eggs in a titanium fry pan over a fire? Well, there's the evidence right there. You know, I probably say this every time I'm cooking a meal out here in the woods, especially one that I've cooked over an open fire like this one, especially when it's venison grilled over some hardwood coals. Oh, I don't know if I've ever done a better job, but wow, that was good. The eggs turned out perfectly, and to top it off, now I'm having a cup of coffee, but as you can see, it's still smoking hot. So I'll wait on that for a few moments time while we finish this video off. The fire is still dying down. There is still plenty of heat left on those coals. It'll take me a little while before the fire dies out completely, and I can just turn it upside down, dump the coals. What I've found is that there's very little ash left. That's actually kind of surprised me. I expected that this would not have the complete combustion that it appeared it would. Turns out I was wrong and pleasantly surprised. I'll admit that I'm much happier knowing that the combustion is right down to ash. There's very little left. Now, another thought is, as you look at it, and was again, my initial thought is, well, what about ash buildup inside of the stove? With that little room between, it's an inch and a half, maybe not even, between the ash pan and the fire grate, isn't there a lot of ash built up there that's going to eventually choke it off? Hasn't been my experience so far. Theoretically, it should, but for whatever reason, it doesn't. Oh, by the way, this is fire 17 or 18 I've had in this stove, and I've intentionally put some really hot fires in it. Now, it's not a long-term review, but I think 17 or 18 hot fires gives me enough evidence to say this thing is going to last. It's been very durable so far. I have no reason to think that it's going to suddenly fall apart on me. It's not impacted by the heat in the least. Now, it is stainless steel. It could rust if you leave it out and get it wet and let it sit there, but you know, it hasn't so far is what I can say, and it's snowing now, as you can see, so hasn't been an issue for me at all. It's been a real joy to use. That's what I'm going to say about it. It's I think one of my preferred carry stoves, because it has that ability to be both a fire pit and a cooking stove at the same time, handling two, not big pots or pans or whatever, but you know, two smaller ones at the same time. That's hard to beat. There's no way you can choke this off unless you have something 12 inches, maybe even more in diameter. That'd be about the only way you could choke off airflow at the top, and even then I'm not sure it would. I suspect there's enough ventilation around the top of the stove that it would continue to burn, maybe a little bit reduced by that big pot, but I don't often carry pots 12 inches in diameters out into the woods, so I don't think that's an issue. This will probably come out with me the rest of the winter, unless of course I get another stove I want to test, and that's always possible. Oh, there is one other thing that I wanted to mention about this stove. This is something that Bruno had suggested I show you. I failed to do so, but I'll explain it and hopefully it makes sense. If not, there's a good chance I'll be doing it yet this winter. And that is, if you're using this stove in deep snow, and as you can see, it's just a dusting here. Cold, but just a dusting of snow. You can take 2 sticks, maybe 12, 15 inches in length, maybe an inch, 2 inches in diameter, lay them on the stove, on the snow, just close to each other. Put the stove on top of that. It'll support the stove up on top without sinking it through or without having to dig down to the ground, especially if it's really deep and hard, snowy ice. I haven't had to do, well, I've used it in deep snow once, but it was easy enough for me to shovel out. I had a shovel with me anyway. But just a small trick that Bruno tells me they use in Switzerland, where this stove is made. I don't know if I mentioned that. This stove is made in Switzerland and no offshore production here at all. Okay, if you have any comments or questions for the PicoGrill 618, put them in the comments section below. I'll be providing all the specifications for this stove, and there is a, well, actually I'll probably create a playlist. I have all of the PicoGrill stoves if you want to do some comparisons. And the links to where you can take another look at this. Do be cautious, and I say this only because we found the last time, do be cautious of where you buy your PicoGrill stoves from. Not only have they been plagiarized in terms of the design, they've actually, when I say they, some unethical offshore production, they've actually taken the name as well as the design, and it is not a true PicoGrill stove. So if you want to support the owner and the design, the guy, the genius that put this together, then buy from the links that I provide you in my videos. Those are the only true places you can get them. This will eventually be available on Amazon, and Bruno said he made the, not the mistake last time, but he made sure that he has this lockdown, this design locked down legally. Hopefully that makes a difference. Okay, once again, get out and explore and take that path less traveled, because it will make all the difference. Bye for now.